I was in the nursery adjusting the baby monitor on the dresser when I heard his voice come through the speaker. Clear as day, my boyfriend Marcus, in my kitchen, 40 feet away. But he wasn't talking to me. "She said the old lady won't last till spring," Marcus said, his voice casual, like he was discussing the weather. "Once that happens, Claire inherits everything. The house, the land, the whole estate in Vermont. We just need to keep her happy until then." A woman's laugh crackled through the monitor. "And she has no idea you're picking out cabinets for your house, not hers?" My blood turned to ice. "Hello, my name is Claire Montgomery, and I'm about to tell you how a $70 baby monitor saved my life, my grandmother's dignity, and exposed the most calculated betrayal I've ever experienced. Before I begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your state or country in the comments. It helps me know I'm not alone in this. And trust me, after what I went through, knowing I'm not alone means everything." This story starts 6 months before that awful moment. I'm 57 years old, a widow of 3 years, living in coastal Massachusetts. My husband David died of a sudden heart attack, leaving me with a paid-off house, some savings, and a hole in my heart I thought would never heal. Then I met Marcus at a charity auction in Boston. He was 52, charming, attentive, and he made me laugh for the first time in years. He said he was a contractor, recently divorced, building his business back up after his ex-wife took everything in the settlement. He seemed genuine. Wounded, but genuine. Like me. Marcus knew all the right things to say. He'd show up with my favorite coffee, remember small details about my day, and he never pressured me. When I told him I wasn't ready for physical intimacy, he said he'd wait as long as it took. He met my grandmother Josephine during a Sunday dinner, and she seemed charmed by him too. Grandmother Josephine was 89, living in her estate in Burlington, Vermont, the house where my mother grew up, where I spent every summer of my childhood. She was slowing down, using a walker, but her mind was sharp as ever. She'd recently updated her will, leaving everything to me: the house, the 30 acres of land, her savings. It wasn't a fortune, but in Vermont real estate terms, it was worth close to $2 million. I made the mistake of telling Marcus about the inheritance during a vulnerable moment. We were having dinner, and I was worried about Grandma's declining health. He held my hand and told me not to think about money at a time like this. He told me to focus on making memories with her. What a performance that was. Marcus suggested we renovate my kitchen. "A fresh start," he called it. "David's gone, and you need to make this house yours again." He offered to do it at cost since he had contractor connections. I agreed. I thought he loved me. That's when I bought the baby monitor. You might wonder why a 57-year-old widow needs a baby monitor. The answer is simple: I don't. But my daughter, Emily, who lives in Seattle, was pregnant with my first grandchild. She'd shipped me some baby items to store until after the birth, and the monitor was in the box. I'd been testing it one Tuesday afternoon, making sure it worked before storing it away, when I placed the receiver unit in the nursery to be and walked to the kitchen with the parent unit. I was going to test the range, see if it could pick up sounds from different rooms. Standard grandmother preparation. That's when Marcus arrived, earlier than expected. I was in the bathroom when I heard the front door open. I'd given him a key 3 weeks prior, another decision I'd come to regret. Through the baby monitor in my pocket, I heard him enter the kitchen, heard cabinet doors opening and closing. He was measuring for the renovation. Then I heard the front door again. Another voice. Female. Young. "Mark, this kitchen is huge," the woman said. "Once it's yours, we can do the island in marble. Maybe add that wine fridge you wanted." I stood frozen in the bathroom, the monitor clutched in my trembling hand. "Keep your voice down," Marcus said. "She could come home any time." "She's at her grief counseling group until 4, the woman replied. "You said so yourself. We have time." My grief counseling group. He knew my schedule perfectly. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m., I attended a widow's support group at the community center. He'd encouraged me to go, said it was healthy to process my loss with others who understood. Now I knew why he was so supportive. It gave him unsupervised access to my house. "Did you talk to your lawyer friend?" the woman asked. "About the Vermont property?" "Yeah," Marcus said. He confirmed what we thought. Once the grandmother dies, Claire inherits everything. As her spouse, I'd have legal claim to half in a divorce, but if we're married when she inherits, it's community property in most cases. "So you need to marry her before the old lady kicks it." "That's the plan. She's already hinting about making things permanent. I give it another month before I propose. Then we just wait." The woman laughed. "God, you're terrible. What if she doesn't die soon?" Her doctor gave her 6 months, maybe a year, spring at the latest. Claire doesn't know that part. The old lady swore the doctor to secrecy, didn't want Claire worrying. But I got the nurse to talk after a few drinks. I felt vomit rising in my throat. He'd been investigating my grandmother's health, calculating her death, planning our marriage around her funeral. "And if Claire gets suspicious?" the woman asked. "She won't. She's desperate for companionship. Her husband's been dead 3 years. She's lonely, vulnerable. She trusts me completely." I gripped the bathroom counter, forcing myself to stay silent. The monitor kept transmitting. "You really know how to pick them, Mark," the woman said. "How much do you think the Vermont place is worth?" "At least $2 million, Marcus said through the monitor. "Maybe more if we subdivide the land. That's $700,000 each after we split it 3 ways. "3 ways?" the woman asked. "Me, you, and my brother. He's the one who set this whole thing up, remember? Found Claire's profile on the widow dating site, did the background check, confirmed the grandmother's assets. He gets his cut." My legs nearly gave out. This wasn't spontaneous. This was premeditated, researched. They'd hunted me like prey. "What about Claire?" the woman asked. "After you divorce her?" "She'll get whatever's left after legal fees. Maybe the house in Massachusetts, if she's lucky. Depends on how good my lawyer is." "You're evil," the woman said, but she was laughing. "I love it." Says the woman helping me defraud a widow. "Hey, I'm just the girlfriend. The real girlfriend. She's just the mark." They both laughed. The sound echoed through the baby monitor and straight through my chest. I wanted to scream, to burst out of the bathroom and confront them, but something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was instinct. But I stayed hidden, listening. "So these cabinets," the woman continued, "she's really paying for them? Every penny, and the countertops, the appliances, the flooring. She thinks we're renovating her kitchen, but I'm going to make sure everything is documented in my contractor company's name. When we divorce, I'll claim she hired my company for services rendered, and the materials become my assets. Judge will probably order her to pay me additional costs." "You've thought of everything." "I've done this before, Amber. That's why I'm good at it." Amber. Now I had a name, and the revelation that I wasn't Marcus's first victim sent chills down my spine. "The ex-wife in Connecticut?" Amber asked. "Walked away with $200,000. She thought she won the divorce. Didn't realize until later that I'd refinanced her house without her knowledge, took out a business loan against her car, and maxed out the credit cards I'd opened in her name. By the time she figured it out, I was in Massachusetts." They were talking about fraud, identity theft. This wasn't just about inheritance. Marcus was a career criminal. "I should get going," Amber said. "Your grieving widow will be home soon." "Let me walk you out the back. Her neighbors are nosy." I heard footsteps, the back door opening and closing, then silence. I waited 5 minutes, barely breathing before emerging from the bathroom. The house was empty. Marcus's truck was gone from the driveway. I sat on my bed, the baby monitor still in my hand, and I did something that surprised me. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. Instead, I got angry. The kind of anger that clarifies everything, that burns away fear and leaves only determination. These people had chosen the wrong widowed target. They'd assumed I was weak because I was grieving. They'd mistaken kindness for stupidity. My younger brother James was a real estate attorney in Boston. I picked up my phone and called him. "James Montgomery." My brother answered on the second ring, his voice professional and crisp. "Jamie, I need you," I said, using his childhood nickname. "Something's happened." His tone changed immediately. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Not physically, but I need your legal brain, and I need you to not tell me I'm overreacting." "Come to my office. Now. Don't tell anyone where you're going." 40 minutes later, I sat across from James in his corner office overlooking Boston Harbor. He'd sent his assistant home early and locked the door. I played him the entire baby monitor recording. I'd had the presence of mind to use my phone to record the audio coming from the monitor speaker. Evidence. James's face grew darker with every word. When it finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "How long have you been seeing this man?" he asked finally. 6 months. "Has he asked you to sign anything? Power of attorney, joint accounts, property deeds?" "No. He wanted to wait until we were married for legal protections," he said. James exhaled. "Thank God. That means he hasn't actually defrauded you yet. Everything he's planning is future crime, not past crime." "What do I do?" "First, we document everything. That recording is legal in Massachusetts. Single-party consent state. You were in your own home, so you had every right to record. This is evidence." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "Second, we need to know who this man really is. Marcus what?" "Marcus Brennan." James typed on his computer. "Give me a minute." His fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing databases I didn't understand. After several minutes, his face went pale. "What?" I asked. "Claire, this man has used 4 different names in the last decade. Marcus Brennan is his current identity, but he's also been Michael Bradley, Martin Brooks, and Maxwell Bennett. He's got a pattern. Finds widows or divorced women with assets, romances them, either marries them and divorces with settlement money, or defrauds them during the relationship." "Can we arrest him?" "On what charge? Planning to marry you isn't illegal. Even planning to divorce you for money isn't illegal. He hasn't actually committed fraud yet." "But he said he'd done this before." "I know, but that's hearsay on a recording. The woman in Connecticut would need to press charges, and even then, it's her word against his." I felt my hope deflating. "So, he gets away with it?" "I didn't say that." James smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile he'd had when we were kids, and someone picked on me at school. "I said we can't arrest him yet, but we can absolutely destroy his plans and protect you." "How?" "We're going to use his own strategy against him. He thinks you're a vulnerable, trusting widow. So that's exactly what you're going to continue to be. You're going to act completely normal, let him continue the kitchen renovation, and even encourage the relationship. I can't pretend to love him now." "You won't have to love him. You just have to be yourself and not let on that you know. Meanwhile, we're going to build a legal fortress around you that he'll never see coming." James outlined his plan. First, I would immediately revoke the key I'd given Marcus. Not by confronting him, but by losing my keys and having the locks changed. Simple, innocent, untraceable. Second, I would cancel the kitchen renovation. Again, not with suspicion, but with a plausible excuse. I'd tell Marcus that grandmother Josephine's health had taken a turn, and I needed to save money for potential medical expenses. This would accomplish 2 things: stop him from installing materials he planned to claim as his own, and test whether he'd pressure me to continue spending money. Third, James would immediately start documenting Marcus's pattern of fraud. He had investigator contacts who could locate the ex-wife in Connecticut and any other potential victims. Fourth, and this was the crucial part, I would revise my will and set up a trust for the Vermont property. If something happened to me, everything would go into a trust for my daughter Emily, managed by James. Marcus couldn't touch it, even if we were married. "But what about catching him?" I asked. "He needs to face consequences." "He will," James promised, "but we need to be patient. Right now, we protect you. Then we gather enough evidence to either get him arrested or sued into oblivion by his other victims. This isn't just about you, Claire. This man is a predator. We need to stop him permanently. I drove home in a daze. The house felt different now, violated. Every corner where Marcus had stood felt contaminated. I looked at the kitchen we'd been planning to renovate, and felt sick. My phone buzzed. Marcus. Hey, beautiful. Sorry I had to run earlier. Emergency call from a client. Dinner tonight? I'll bring wine. I stared at the message. Everything in me wanted to type back. I know what you are. I heard everything. Get out of my life. Instead, I thought about James's advice. I thought about the woman in Connecticut. I thought about how many other widows this man had destroyed. I typed back, dinner sounds perfect. I need to talk to you about something important. His response came immediately. Everything okay? Yes, just some news about Grandma, nothing serious. See you at 7. I'll be there. I set the phone down and made myself a cup of tea. My hands were steady now. The shock had passed, replaced by something colder, more calculated. If you're watching this, could you do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button. I need to know there are people out there who understand what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. Your support means everything right now. When Marcus arrived that evening with wine and flowers, I was ready. I'd rehearsed in front of the mirror, the concerned granddaughter, the worried woman, the trusting girlfriend who had no idea she was dating a con artist. He kissed my cheek. You look tired. Rough day? Just worried about Grandma, I said, leading him to the living room. Her doctor called this afternoon. Marcus's eyes sharpened with interest. Is everything okay? She had a small fall yesterday, I said, watching his face carefully. Nothing serious. She caught herself on her walker, but it scared her doctor. He's recommending we consider full-time care, maybe even moving her to assisted living. That's expensive, Marcus said immediately. How are you planning to handle that? There it was. His first question wasn't about Grandma's well-being, it was about money. I'll have to dip into savings, I said. I'm thinking about postponing the kitchen renovation. I hate to do it, but Grandma comes first. Marcus's expression flickered, just for a second, with frustration. Then he smoothed it over with concern. Of course, your grandmother is the priority, but Claire, you've been looking forward to this renovation for months. What if we scaled it back? Did the essentials only? I don't know. It feels wrong to spend money on cabinets when Grandma might need round-the-clock care. How much would the care cost? The facility she'd moved to is about $8,000 a month. I watched him do the math. At $8,000 a month, Grandma's savings could last years, potentially eating into the inheritance he was counting on. What about keeping her in her own home with visiting nurses? Marcus suggested. Might be cheaper and she'd be more comfortable. That's an option. James is looking into it for me. Your brother? Marcus's tone changed. Why is he involved? He's my brother and he's a lawyer. He handles Grandma's estate planning. Marcus recovered quickly. Of course. That's smart. But I could see the wheels turning in his head. James was a complication he hadn't anticipated. We had dinner. Pasta that tasted like sawdust in my mouth. I pretended everything was normal, laughing at his jokes, discussing our weekend plans. The entire time, I was aware of my phone in my pocket, recording our conversation as backup evidence on James's advice. I've been thinking, Marcus said over dessert. We've been together 6 months. I know it's fast, but at our age, why wait? What if we took a trip to Vermont next month? I could meet your grandmother properly, spend some real time with her. He wanted to assess the property, maybe charm Grandma into trusting him, perhaps even find out details about her health and finances firsthand. That's sweet, I said, but Grandma's doctor says she shouldn't have too much excitement right now. Maybe in the spring? Spring might be too late. Marcus stopped himself. I mean, if she's declining, I'd hate to miss the chance to know her better. Let me talk to her doctor, I said. See what he recommends. After Marcus left, I immediately called James and reported the conversation. He's getting nervous, James said. Your brother being involved in the estate is making him anxious, and the idea of Grandma's money going to medical care instead of inheritance is probably driving him crazy. Good, I said. Let him sweat. I have news, James continued. We found the Connecticut victim. Her name is Patricia Roswell. She's agreed to talk to us. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I'll be there. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Patricia, about what Marcus had done to her, about what he'd planned to do to me. Patricia Roswell was 63, elegant and haunted. She sat in James's office the next morning with a folder of documents in her lap, and when she looked at me, I saw myself reflected in her eyes. He called himself Michael Bradley when I knew him, she said. We met at my husband's funeral, if you can believe it. He was a friend of a friend, or so he claimed, started showing up at the house to check on me. 3 months later, we were engaged. How long were you married? I asked. 9 months. He filed for divorce right after he'd drained my accounts, took out credit cards in my name, forged my signature on a refinance of my house, and created a business loan using my property as collateral. By the time I understood what was happening, I was $300,000 in debt. I felt sick. Did you press charges? I tried, but he's careful. The signatures looked enough like mine that I couldn't prove forgery. He'd recorded me giving him permission to handle finances while I was grieving, except he'd edited the recordings to remove context. My lawyer said it would cost more to fight than I'd recover. So he just got away with it? Patricia's eyes hardened. I had to declare bankruptcy, lost my house. I'm living with my daughter now, and he's out there doing it to someone else. To me, I said quietly. Not if we stop him first, James interjected. He'd been taking notes throughout Patricia's story. Patricia, would you be willing to testify to this pattern of behavior if needed? Absolutely. If it stops him from destroying another life, I'll testify anywhere. James pulled out more documents. I found 2 other potential victims, one in Rhode Island, one in New Hampshire. Both widows, both romanced by a man matching Marcus's description using different names, both financially devastated. I've reached out to them through their attorneys. How is he not in prison? I asked. Because he's smart, Patricia said bitterly. He targets women in grief, women whose judgment is clouded by loss. He's charming, patient, and he knows exactly how to manipulate the legal system. Each victim loses money, but not quite enough to trigger serious fraud investigations. He moves states, changes names, and starts over. Until now, James said. Claire, you have something none of the other victims had. Advance warning. We know what he's planning before he does it. That gives us power. What do we do? I asked. We set a trap, James said. Marcus thinks you're going to inherit $2 million from your grandmother. He's built his entire strategy around that inheritance. So we're going to make absolutely certain that when the time comes, there's nothing for him to inherit. Patricia leaned forward. What are you planning? Grandma Josephine needs to know what's happening, James said. And then she needs to change her will in a way that protects Claire but looks natural. Meanwhile, Claire is going to help us gather enough evidence to build a criminal case. Not just civil, criminal. How? I asked. You're going to get him to confess. On camera. The next day, I drove to Vermont to see grandmother Josephine. She was in her sunroom reading when I arrived. The fall Marcus had lied about had never happened. I'd made it up to gauge his reaction. But looking at her now, fragile in the afternoon light, I realized how precious she was. How dare Marcus treat her death as a business opportunity? Claire, darling, she said, setting down her book. What a wonderful surprise. I sat beside her and took her hand. Grandma, I need to tell you something difficult. I told her everything. The baby monitor, Marcus's plan, the other victims. I watched her face shift from shock to anger, to cold determination. That son of a bitch, she said when I finished. My grandmother never cursed. He's been calculating my death like I'm livestock. James has a plan, I said, but it involves changing your will temporarily. Temporarily? We need Marcus to think he's won, then pull the rug out from under him. But more importantly, we need to protect you and make sure this man faces real consequences. Grandma was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, a fierce, sharp smile that reminded me she'd been a prosecutor before she retired. Tell me what to do. James arrived that afternoon with documents. The plan was intricate but brilliant. Grandma would create a new will that placed all her assets into an irrevocable trust managed by James, with me as the beneficiary. If I got married, the trust would remain separate property. Marcus couldn't touch it even as my spouse. But here was the genius part. We wouldn't tell Marcus about the trust. We'd let him continue thinking a marriage would give him access to the inheritance. We need him to commit to the fraud, James explained. Right now, he's just a boyfriend with plans. But if he marries Claire with the specific intent to defraud her of an inheritance, that's criminal conspiracy. And if he takes any action toward that end, forging documents, manipulating finances, anything, that's actual fraud. How do we prove intent? I asked. You get him to confess on camera. Tell him Grandma's health has worsened, that doctors say she has weeks, not months. Tell him you're inheriting everything and you want to get married immediately, so he's protected if something happens to you. Appeal to his greed. He'll propose, I said. Let him. Wear a wire for the proposal for all subsequent conversations. Massachusetts law allows single-party consent recording. Everything he says is admissible evidence. When he proposes, he'll reveal his intentions, Patricia added. She'd driven up to Vermont to be part of the plan. Men like him can't help themselves when they think they've won. He'll get cocky. Grandma squeezed my hand. Claire, are you sure you can do this? Pretending to love a man who's been planning to rob you? I thought about Patricia, about the other victims, about every widow Marcus had destroyed. Yes, I said, I can do this. We spent the afternoon planning every detail. James would remain the invisible puppet master. Patricia would be backup if we needed testimony, and I would be the bait. 3 days later, I called Marcus. His health declined rapidly, I said, my voice shaking. The doctor says it's a matter of weeks now, maybe days. Marcus arrived at my house within an hour. I'd been crying, real tears, because despite everything, I was thinking about eventually losing my real grandmother, not the fake timeline I'd created. He held me, stroked my hair, and whispered comforting words. I need to be in Vermont, I said. I need to be with her. Of course. I'll drive you. No, I need to do this with family, just me and James. I pulled back and looked at him. Marcus, I've been thinking. Life is so short. David died without warning. Now Grandma's dying. What if something happened to me? Don't talk like that. I'm serious. You and we've been dancing around something for months. I know it's fast, but I don't want to wait anymore. After Grandma passes, after I inherit her estate, I want you to be protected. I want us to be married. I felt him stiffen with surprise, then relax into calculated warmth. Claire, I want that too. I've wanted to propose for weeks, but didn't want to pressure you. So let's not wait. Let's get married at Christmas. Small ceremony, just us and immediate family. Christmas, he repeated. That's just a month away. Is that a problem? No, he said quickly. No, it's perfect. I just want to make sure you're sure. This is a big decision. I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed me then, and I had to force myself not to recoil. The wire James had given me, a tiny device hidden in my necklace, was recording everything. There's something I need to tell you, Marcus said, sitting down on the couch. I haven't been completely honest about my financial situation. Here it comes, I thought. When my ex-wife divorced me, she didn't just take half. She destroyed my credit, my business relationships. I'm essentially broke, Claire. I've been living on contractor jobs, but I'm behind on everything. I didn't want to burden you with this, but if we're getting married, you deserve to know." "How much debt?" I asked. "About 50,000. Credit cards mostly, some business loans." He was lying. James had pulled his credit report. Marcus had excellent credit under multiple names. This was part of his strategy: appear financially desperate so I wouldn't question why he needed access to my money. "We'll figure it out," I said. "Once Grandma's estate settles, we'll have enough to clear your debt and start fresh." His eyes gleamed. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course. We're going to be married. What's mine is yours." "And what's yours is mine," he said, kissing my forehead. "God, Claire, I love you so much. You're everything I've been looking for." The wire captured every word, every lie, every manipulation. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus became increasingly attentive. He helped me plan the wedding, suggested we skip a prenup, we're starting a life together, not planning a divorce, and even drove me to Vermont to visit Grandma twice. During the second visit, he asked Grandma about her estate planning. She played her part perfectly, confirming that everything was going to me, that the will was ironclad, that James had handled all the paperwork. "Claire's going to be well taken care of," Grandma said, patting Marcus's hand. The wedding was scheduled for December 20th. 2 weeks before, James called me to his office. "We have enough," he said, playing back recordings of a dozen conversations. Marcus discussing his debts that didn't exist. Marcus talking to Amber about timing the wedding before the inheritance. Marcus on a phone call with his brother, discussing how to liquidate assets quickly after the marriage. "It's time to end this," James said. We scheduled a family dinner at my house. Me, James, Grandma, and Marcus. I told Marcus we were celebrating our upcoming wedding and Grandma's improved health. When Marcus arrived, he found us all in the living room. James stood as he entered. "Marcus, or should I say Michael, or Martin, or Maxwell," James said calmly. Marcus's face went white. "What is this?" "This is where you find out that not every widow is an easy mark," I said. James handed him a folder. Inside, you'll find copies of every recording Claire made over the past 6 weeks. You discussing your plans to marry her for inheritance money. You admitting to defrauding your ex-wife. You coordinating with your girlfriend Amber and your brother to divide assets from a woman you claim to love. You can't record someone without their knowledge. "Single-party consent state," James said. And Claire was present for every conversation. Perfectly legal. You'll also find statements from Patricia Roswell and 2 other women you defrauded in other states. Marcus looked at me with something like hatred. "You bitch." "The police are on their way," James continued. "You'll be arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft from your previous victims, and a few other charges we've documented. The district attorney is very interested in your pattern of targeting widows." "And Grandma's will?" Marcus spat. "The inheritance?" Grandma smiled. "In a trust. Irrevocable. Even if Claire had married you, you'd never have seen a penny." "You've been working an already dead con," I said. "For 6 months." Marcus lunged at me, but James stepped between us. 2 police officers appeared at the door. James had timed their arrival perfectly. As they handcuffed Marcus, he looked at me one last time. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "You'll regret underestimating a grieving widow." They took him away. Amber and his brother were arrested the same evening. That was 8 months ago. Marcus pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and received 4 years in prison. Patricia and the other victims are pursuing civil suits. I got my locks changed, my kitchen stayed exactly as it was, and I learned that being lonely doesn't mean being desperate. Grandma is still with us, still sharp, still the strongest person I know. James never charged me a legal fee, said it was family duty, and I donated the baby monitor to Emily with a note. Sometimes the simplest tools save your life. To everyone watching, thank you for staying with me through this story. I hope it reminds you that being kind doesn't mean being naive, and there's no shame in asking for help when something feels wrong. Trust your instincts. They're usually right. Thank you for watching.